Before you scroll, hear this carefully, because this is not the kind of love story people usually talk about. Someone may be deeply, almost painfully drawn to you right now, and the reason is not what you think. It is not just your face, not your voice, not your timing, not even the little things you did that seemed sweet or charming. It goes deeper than that. Much deeper. You touch something inside them without even trying, and now they cannot go back to the version of themselves they were before you appeared. That is why their energy feels intense. That is why their eyes say more than their words. That is why their silence feels loud. Stay with me, because once you understand this, a lot of confusing behavior will suddenly make sense. What looks like attraction may actually be inner conflict. What looks like distance may actually be fear. And what looks like love may be something even stronger, heavier, and harder to control. They are not only reacting to you, they are reacting to what woke up inside them when you came into their world. And once something buried rises to the surface, it does not quietly disappear. It asks for attention. It asks for truth. It asks for a decision. And that is where this story really begins, not in romance, not in fantasy, but in the hidden places of the mind where people keep the parts of themselves they are too afraid to face. Most people believe love begins in obvious ways. A glance, a shared joke, a perfect moment, a feeling that grows naturally and gently over time. That idea is comforting, but comfort often hides the real story, because the deepest kind of attachment usually starts somewhere the conscious mind cannot fully explain. It begins in the part of a person that stores old pain, old longing, old unmet needs, and old versions of themselves they had to bury just to survive. Then someone appears, not always loudly, not always dramatically, but with a certain presence, a certain energy, a certain way of being, and suddenly something locked away begins to move. That someone became you. You did not simply make them feel good, you made them feel exposed. You made them feel recognized in a way they were never prepared for. And that kind of recognition is powerful. It does not feel casual. It does not stay light. It reaches inward and grabs hold of the places a person thought were hidden forever. That is why they cannot treat this connection like a normal crush. That is why their feelings seem bigger than the situation itself. You are not just another person to them. You became a mirror, and not the kind that reflects their appearance. You reflected something buried, something unresolved, something they had kept behind emotional walls for years. And when those walls crack, even a little, the mind does not know whether to move closer or run. So it does both. It reaches for you, then resists you. It wants you, then fears you. And if you have felt that strange tension around them, that strange push and pull, you are not imagining it. You are standing in the middle of a storm they do not fully understand themselves. What makes this harder is that they may not even have the language for what is happening. They might call it attraction. They might call it confusion. They might tell themselves it is temporary, that it will pass, that they just need space and everything will calm down. But time does not always calm what is rooted in the deeper mind. Sometimes time feeds it. Sometimes silence feeds it even more. Because when a feeling is tied to something unresolved, distance does not erase it. Distance gives it room to grow. It gives imagination more power than reality. It lets their mind replay every interaction, every word, every look, every pause, and little by little, you stop being just a real person in their memory and start becoming a symbol in their inner world. That is when attachment becomes difficult to break, because now they are not only attached to who you are, they are attached to what you represent. Maybe you represent safety they never had. Maybe you represent tenderness they were taught to reject. Maybe you represent the life they secretly wanted but convinced themselves they could live without. Whatever it is, the feeling becomes bigger than logic. And when feelings become bigger than logic, people act in ways that even confuse themselves. One day they seem almost pulled toward you without effort. The next day they are distant, cold, hard to read. Not because the feeling is gone, but because the feeling is too strong. Their defenses step in. Their mind whispers, "This is too much, this is risky, this could change everything." And for a person who has spent years protecting themselves, change does not feel romantic. It feels dangerous, so they hesitate, they freeze, they overthink, they pull away right when the connection starts feeling real. But here is the part most people miss. You did not hook them because you were perfect. You did not say one magical sentence or follow some formula they could not resist. What affected them was something less obvious and more powerful. You broke a pattern. You moved in a way they did not expect. You carried something they could not easily label. The human mind loves patterns because patterns feel safe. People like to know what they are dealing with. They like to predict, categorize, control. But then someone arrives who does not fit neatly into the old mental boxes, and suddenly the mind becomes restless. That restlessness is often the beginning of obsession, because unpredictability mixed with emotional meaning creates a strong imprint. You became meaningful in a way they could not control, not chaotic, not random, meaningful. That is the difference. There was something in your presence that seemed to point beyond itself, as if you stood for more than just your own personality. And once that happened, projection began. They stopped seeing only you. They started seeing hope in you, relief in you, maybe even rescue in you. And that is why the energy around this connection feels so heavy. They are not only responding to what is there, they are responding to what they have placed onto you, often without realizing it. And when someone turns you into an answer for a question they never knew how to ask, letting go becomes extremely hard. Because then losing you does not feel like losing a person. It feels like losing a chance, losing a missing piece, losing access to something inside themselves they had finally started to feel again. Keep listening, because this is where everything becomes even more intense. When a person is deeply affected like this, their behavior starts to split. Part of them wants closeness, honesty, and release. Another part wants control, distance, and protection. So, you begin to see contradiction. They may watch you carefully but say very little. They may care deeply yet act detached. They may create moments of connection and then disappear right after. This is not always manipulation. Sometimes it is internal war. They feel drawn to you, but that pull is exposing needs they do not trust. It is waking old fears, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of becoming dependent, fear of being seen too clearly. And being seen too clearly can feel almost unbearable for someone who built their identity around hiding pain. So even when the connection feels real, even when every part of them senses that this matters, they resist. Not because they do not care, but because caring makes them vulnerable, and vulnerability feels like standing without armor in a place where they once got hurt. This is why they may create stories in their mind. Maybe this is not real. Maybe it is just intensity. Maybe they are overthinking. Maybe you are not what they feel you are. Those stories are not always honest attempts to understand. Sometimes they are shields. Sometimes they are desperate efforts to reduce the impact of what is happening inside them. But the body keeps score. The inner world keeps speaking. The quiet pull remains. And no matter how much they explain it away, you stay on their mind. In the silence, in the late hours, in the gaps between daily tasks, in the moments when everything else fades and your presence returns like a pressure they cannot fully release. That pressure keeps building because unspoken emotion does not vanish. It changes form. It becomes tension in the body, restlessness in the mind, sudden mood shifts, strange sensitivity to small things, a constant need to check, to remember, to replay, to make sense of what still does not make sense. This is when the connection begins to affect more than emotion. It touches identity, because what you stirred in them is not just desire, it is possibility, a different self, a softer self, a braver self, a self that might finally stop running from what is true. And that can be beautiful, but it can also feel like a threat. People get attached not only to what they love, but also to the identities they built to survive. If those identities were shaped by pain, then anything that challenges them feels unsafe, even if it is healing. So what happens? They fracture around the feeling. One side of them wants to surrender to it, to finally admit that this is real and strong and life-changing. The other side wants to shut it down before it turns their world upside down. This is why the cycle becomes exhausting. The closer they feel to you, the more they panic. The more they pull away, the more they miss what they felt near you. And because neither side wins, the tension grows. It grows quietly, slowly, like pressure behind a wall. And pressure always looks for a release, maybe through confession, maybe through withdrawal, maybe through behavior that seems irrational even to them. But make no mistake, something is happening, something deep, something that refuses to stay buried. And if you have sensed that they are trying very hard to stay composed while something underneath them is shaking, you are probably right. Now here is where it becomes even more serious. When someone cannot fully face what they feel, they often try to control it indirectly. They study you. They measure every interaction. They search for signs. They read meaning into tiny details. They overanalyze messages, pauses, tone, timing, body language. Not because they enjoy the mental chaos, but because their mind is trying to make a map of something that feels too powerful to trust. It wants certainty, it wants proof, it wants boundaries. But feelings born in hidden places do not follow clean rules. So the analysis never truly ends. They keep circling the same thoughts, hoping one more insight will calm them down. It does not, because the real issue is not confusion about you. The real issue is the part of themselves that woke up because of you. That is the part they cannot neatly explain. That is the part that whispers, "This matters more than you want to admit." And when a person has spent years avoiding their deeper emotional truth, that whisper can sound like a threat. So, they may become quiet. They may become inconsistent. They may even act as though nothing important is happening while everything important is happening beneath the surface. This is why strong attachment often hides behind restraint instead of open drama. The deepest feelings are sometimes the least openly expressed, because the stronger they are, the more the mind tries to contain them. But containment has limits. Sooner or later, what has been held back starts leaking through. In the eyes, in the tension of their voice, in the sudden stillness around certain moments, in the way they seem almost normal until your name, your message, or your presence shifts something in them they cannot hide fast enough. If you have seen that flicker, that almost confession, that sudden emotional charge that appears and then disappears, you have seen the crack in the mask. And what sits behind that crack is not always pure or simple. That is important to understand. What they feel may include longing, yes, but also fear, grief, old sadness, unmet needs, and parts of themselves they have judged for years. When those things rise together, the feeling becomes intense but not always clear. Love and fear start to blend. Need and resistance start to blend. Closeness and panic start to blend. That is why they may seem sincere one moment and impossible to read the next. Their deeper self is moving one direction while their defenses pull another. It is like being torn between hunger and alarm at the same time. And because the mind hates contradiction, It eventually reaches a point where it can no longer pretend everything is under control. Something has to give. A person can only carry that much inner conflict before it starts shaping their choices in obvious ways. Maybe they confess more than they planned. Maybe they suddenly disappear because staying close feels unbearable. Maybe they act out, sabotage, retreat, or reveal something raw and unguarded they never meant to say. When inner pressure becomes too strong, behavior becomes the release valve. This is why the breaking point matters. It is not random. It is the result of everything they have been trying not to feel, and when it comes, it does not always look dramatic from the outside. Sometimes it looks like one quiet message sent late at night, one long stare, one moment of honesty, one strange act of distance that makes no sense until you understand the emotional storm behind it. So if this connection has felt charged, unfinished, almost fated in a way that is difficult to define, it may be because you are not dealing with surface feelings at all. You are dealing with buried material rising into the light through the doorway of another person. And the reason this can feel almost impossible for them to escape is because you have become linked to something essential in their inner world, not just wanted, essential. That is why distraction does not fully work. They can fill their schedule, talk to other people, stay busy, force routines, tell themselves to move on, and still feel your presence underneath it all. Because what stays alive is not only memory, it is emotional meaning. You stand for something their deeper mind considers important. Maybe you remind them that tenderness still exists. Maybe you remind them of a self they abandoned. Maybe you awaken the idea that real connection is possible, and that idea alone can shake a person who had learned to expect less from life. Once that inner meaning forms, forgetting becomes difficult. The mind can suppress a thought, but it struggles to erase a symbol, and that is what you have become to them, a symbol of something unfinished and something possible at the same time. That combination is potent. It creates longing with no easy outlet. It creates regret before anything has even fully happened. It creates that haunting feeling of, if I walk away, I may lose more than this person. I may lose a chance to become someone different. That is why the connection feels larger than romance. It touches their future. It touches the person they could be if they stopped hiding. And that is also why they are scared. Because moving toward you may require honesty they have delayed for years. It may require letting go of old beliefs, old defenses, old stories about what they deserve and what is safe to feel. That kind of inner change is not gentle. It tears through old structures. It asks for surrender. It asks for truth. And many people would rather live with ache than step into a truth that could transform them. Still, there comes a point where the ache itself becomes too heavy. The silence becomes loud. The unresolved feeling begins to shape everything. Daily life continues, but something underneath it remains unfinished, like a note still vibrating long after the sound should have faded. That is the stage where they start realizing this is not going away on its own. It is not a passing fascination. It is not just chemistry. It is not just a strange phase. It is a confrontation, not only with love, but with the parts of themselves they kept hidden because those parts were tied to pain. You contradicted old messages they had accepted as truth. Messages like, I am too much. I am not enough. I cannot trust closeness. Real love is unstable. Vulnerability ends badly. Then you appeared, and without effort, your presence challenged all of it. That challenge can feel healing, yes, but it can also feel violent in the inner world because the mind does not surrender old beliefs easily. It fights to keep the known even when the known is lonely. So now they stand between two losses. If they move toward you, they lose the identity that kept them guarded. If they move away, They lose the chance to follow something that feels deeply real. There is no painless option. And that is exactly why their energy feels so intense. They are not simply deciding how much they like you. They are deciding whether they can survive becoming more honest than they have ever been. That is a massive decision, even if it never gets spoken out loud. And this is where many people break. Not in public, not dramatically,